Deep within the sacred chambers of the Temple of Nejet, High Priest Hadef unrolls a brittle papyrus scroll with trembling hands. The dim glow of oil lamps flickers, casting long shadows on the stone walls. His eyes, heavy with the weight of ancient knowledge, scan the forbidden text, lips moving in a silent incantation. Then, his breath stills. The prophecy is clear. When the red moon ascends and the sands consume the sun, the Forgotten One shall rise, bringing forth an age of ruin. A sudden gust of unnatural wind sweeps through the chamber, extinguishing the flames. Darkness envelops the room. From the abyss, a voice whispers not in words, but in a chilling presence that coils around Hadef's very soul. He staggers back, clutching the scroll. He must warn the queen, but deep down, he knows the doom is already set in motion. Beyond the temple walls, the city of Nejet sleeps under the watchful gaze of the gods. The great pyramid of Pharaoh Archimen stands undisturbed in the desert's embrace, its limestone casing reflecting the moonlight. But something stirs beneath its surface. The golden hieroglyphs that seal the tomb's entrance glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside the burial chamber, the air is thick and stagnant. The sarcophagus, untouched for centuries, vibrates with an eerie hum. Slowly, a thin crack splinters across the stone lid. The Forgotten One is no longer bound by time. In the depths of the desert, a lone scholar, Taharik, kneels before the tomb's entrance, sweat glistening on his brow despite the cool night air. His expedition, funded by nobles eager for lost treasures, has led him to this moment. Ignoring the warnings etched into the stone, he reaches out, pressing his palm against the seal. The moment his fingers touch the glyphs, the air shifts. A deep rumble echoes from within. The sand trembles beneath him. Then silence. A gust of hot wind rushes from the tomb's opening, carrying the scent of decay. His heart pounds. He should run. But the pull of discovery is stronger than fear. In the bustling heart of Nejet, merchants and commoners fill the streets, their laughter and chatter echoing under the vast sky. But suddenly, the world shifts. The sun, once a brilliant golden orb, dims unnaturally. The moon, swollen and crimson, rises high, casting a ghostly hue over the city. The laughter fades. Conversations die mid-sentence. People exchange fearful glances. Then, a sounded deep, guttural groan emerges from the earth itself. The sands outside the city ripple as though disturbed by an unseen force. Somewhere in the distance, a child cries out. A dreadful silence follows. From the western horizon, a lone rider gallops into the city, his robes tattered, his face streaked with blood and dust. His horse, foaming at the mouth, barely makes it past the temple gates before collapsing. The man, barely clinging to life, reaches out, grasping at the arm of a stunned guard. His breath is shallow, his eyes wild with terror. In a voice barely more than a whisper, he speaks. It has begun. Then his body goes limp. The gods have turned their gaze upon the world once more, and what is written cannot be undone. The city of Nejet awakens under the eerie glow of the crimson moon, its people whispering of omens and curses. Amidst the rising fear, a young healer named Setari moves through the temple corridors, her hands carrying bowls of sacred oils and linen wraps. She has spent her life tending to the sick, her days filled with prayers and remedies. But tonight, a deep unease settles in her heart. The high priest's frantic whispers about an ancient prophecy haunt her thoughts. She was raised to believe in the gods' protection, yet the air itself feels heavy, as if unseen forces have begun to stir. Within the palace walls, Queen Nephra sits upon her alabaster throne, her golden bangles clinking softly as she drums her fingers on the armrest. Her advisors argue, voices rising in discord. The omens, they claim, are nothing more than celestial trick shadows cast upon the world by restless gods. A few, eyes filled with worry, speak of an ancient warning long buried in temple records. Nephra's gaze lingers on the horizon, where the red moon looms over the city like an unblinking eye. Her people demand reassurance, but deep inside, a seed of doubt takes root. In the lower district, an old tomb robber named Kamen stares at the strange golden amulet he unearthed from a forgotten crypt. Its surface is covered in inscriptions that seem to shift under the dim torchlight. He knows the risk stealing from the dead is punishable by the godspot. The artifact hums with an unnatural warmth, almost as if it breathes. Greed battles with fear as he slips it into his satchel. The moment the clasp closes, the air around him changes. A whisper, neither from man nor beast, brushes against his ear. He spins, but the tomb is empty. Or so it seems. Setari is summoned to the royal court, her heart pounding as she kneels before Queen Nephra. The temple priests have spoken. Setari is chosen to unravel the mystery of the omens. The queen's voice is calm, but her eyes betray urgency. Setari protests. She is no warrior, no scholar versed in riddles. But fate does not bend to mortal desires. With only a satchel of herbs, a simple bronze dagger, and a prayer on her lips, she sets out into the desert, accompanied by a handful of palace guards. Somewhere beyond the city walls, the answers await if she dares to find them. The journey is not far when the first sign appears. A dead vulture, its body twisted unnaturally, lies in their path. The winds shift, carrying a foul scent of decay. The guards whisper among themselves, but none speak aloud. What they all feel, something ancient watches them. That night, as Setari rests beneath a makeshift canopy, a dream overtakes her. She stands before a colossal figure wrapped in shadows, its golden eyes burning with malice. A voice like grinding stone fills the air. You cannot stop what has already begun. She wakes with a gasp. The sands beneath her fingertips feel colder than they should. The city of Nejet stirs under the crimson moon, its people whispering of bad omens. In the temple corridors, Setari, a young healer, moves swiftly, her hands clutching bowls of sacred oils. Her days are spent tending to the sick, but tonight, unease coils in her chest. The high priest's anxious mutterings about an ancient prophecy haunt her thoughts. Outside, a dry wind rattles the wooden shutters, carrying voices that do not belong to the living. She shudders but forces herself forward. There is work to do. In the palace, Queen Nephra stands at her balcony, eyes locked on the moon's unnatural glow. The voices of her advisors rise in argument behind her. Some dismiss the omens, calling them mere tricks of the sky. Others recall the old legends, warning of a forgotten horror buried beneath the sands. Nephra grips the cool stone railing. The city demands reassurance, but doubt gnaws at her resolve. She closes her eyes and exhales. Whatever is coming, she must be ready. Torches flicker along the palace hall as scribes unroll brittle scrolls, their fingers tracing faded ink. The high priest Hadef reads aloud, his voice trembling. When the moon bleeds and the wind carries whispers, the forgotten one shall wake. A chill settles in the chamber. The advisors glance at one another, shifting uneasily. These words were written centuries ago, warnings from a time before memory. At the city gates, merchants pause as an unnatural stillness overtakes the streets. A woman clutches her child, staring at the sky. The once brilliant moon is veiled in blood, casting a sinister glow. A priest in the marketplace lifts his hands in prayer, but no words leave his lips. Fear has gripped them all, yet the queen's court remains divided. The prophecy is dismissed as foolish superstition, but beyond the palace walls, the city of Nejet can feel it something is terribly wrong. Deep beneath the temple, Khamun, a tomb robber, brushes sand away from an ornate golden amulet. Its surface hums with an unnatural warmth. The inscriptions shift as though alive. He swallows hard. He has looted many tombs, but this relic is different. He grips it tightly, convincing himself it is just gold. But when he closes his satchel, a whisper skims his ear. You should not have touched it. His breath catches. He spins around, but the tomb is empty. At that same moment, Setari, still within the temple, feels a sudden pulse in her chest. She gasps, her fingers tightening around a vial of lotus oil. The air thickens, pressing down on her. A deep voice, ancient and unseen, murmurs in her mind. It begins. Her vision blurs, and for a brief moment, she sees the sands outside the city churning as if alive. Then, the moment passes. She steadies herself, shaking the sensation away. But in the depths of her heart, a dreadful certainty takes root. Something beyond human comprehension is awakening. Setari stands before Queen Nephra, her hands clenched at her sides. The high priest has spoken. She is chosen to investigate the omens. Her heart pounds. She is no warrior, no scholar versed in ancient texts. I am a healer, she protests. But fate does not care for hesitation. The queen's expression is unreadable as she places a rolled scroll in Setari's hands. The gods have spoken. With no choice, Setari sets off into the desert at dawn, accompanied by a handful of palace guards. The sands stretch endlessly before them, shimmering under the morning light. She clutches the satchel of herbs at her side, her mind filled with doubt. The prophecy, the whispers, the moon's strange glow, it all seems unreal. Yet the moment she steps beyond the city walls, a strange sensation washes over her, as though unseen eyes are watching. The wind shifts, and for a fleeting moment, she swears she hears her name carried in the breeze. The first sign appears before they have traveled far. A vulture lies motionless in the sand, its wings twisted unnaturally. The guards exchange uneasy glances, but say nothing. The wind grows stronger, carrying the scent of something foul, something ancient. The desert is silent, unnervingly so. The usual hum of insects and distant jackals has vanished. That night, as Setari rests beneath a makeshift canopy, she is pulled into a dream. A great figure looms before her, wrapped in shadows, its golden eyes burning through the darkness. A voice, deep and grating, speaks. You cannot stop what has already begun. She gasps awake, her breath ragged. The desert night is cold, but her skin is damp with sweat. As she presses a hand to the sand beside her, it feels unnaturally cool. She turns her gaze toward the horizon, where the silhouette of the distant pyramid stands against the sky. Something waits for her there, and it is awake. Setari and her small company press forward into the vast desert, the sands stretching endlessly before them. The sun burns high in the sky, yet an unnatural chill lingers in the air. They travel toward the ruins of Ankaris, an ancient temple lost to time where the oldest scrolls may hold answers. The journey is harsh. Sandstorms rise without warning. Strange whispers weave through the wind, and their water supplies diminish faster than expected. The guards murmur of curses, but Setari forces herself to stay focused. As they reach the ruins, a heavy silence blankets the air. The once mighty pillars of the temple lie in broken heaps, hieroglyphs carved deep into their surfaces, depicting scenes of great destruction. Inside, the air is stale and thick with dust. Setari runs her fingers along the walls, her eyes scanning the texts. Then, she finds Itan inscription, warning of a great power that should never be disturbed. Her pulse quickens. Just as she begins to decipher the symbols, a sharp sound echoes through the chamber. The torches flicker. A deep rumble shakes the ground. Setari's breath catches in her throat. Something is waking beneath their feet. As Setari examines the inscriptions, one of the guards, Arzek, steps forward, his expression unreadable. He has been silent throughout the journey, his gaze always lingering a moment too long on the Queen's orders. Now, he reaches into his robes and pulls out a small, gleaming artifact twin to the amulet stolen by Kamun. The moment it is exposed, a pulse of dark energy rushes through the chamber, sending a chill down Setari's spine. The guards look at each other in confusion, but Arzek remains still. "The Forgotten One's return is inevitable," he says, his voice eerily calm. "You cannot stop fate." Before Setari can react, Arzek lifts the artifact high. A deep, resonant hum fills the air. The torches extinguish, plunging them into darkness. Then, a surge of unseen force sends Setari crashing against the temple wall. She gasps, pain lancing through her ribs. The others scramble for their weapons, but Arzek moves faster, striking down one of the guards before vanishing into the shadows. A sinister laughter echoes as Setari struggles to her feet. The inscriptions were not just warnings, they were instructions. And now, the seal protecting the world has been weakened. Shaken but determined, Setari and the remaining guards leave the ruins and continue toward the ancient burial site of Pharaoh Archimen, where the prophecy began. The desert is no longer still. The sands shift unnaturally, forming ridges and valleys overnight, as if something beneath them is breathing. Each step forward feels like a battle against forces unseen. As night falls, they set up camp, but sleep does not come easily. A low, distant wailing carries on the wind. The guards sit close to the fire, weapons drawn, their eyes darting to the darkness beyond. Then, without warning, the sands ripple. A figure emerges, a spectral being, its face obscured beneath a tattered headdress, its voice a whisper that chills the bone. "Turn back," it warns. "You walk toward death." Setari grips her dagger, her heart hammering. "Who are you?" she asks. But before the spirit can answer, the winds rise, and it is gone. The desert falls silent once more, but the warning lingers in her mind. Something is waiting for them in the tomb of Archimen, something far worse than they have imagined. They reach the entrance of Archimen's burial site at dawn, the golden stone structure half buried in shifting sands. The air feels heavy, pressing against their chests like an unseen hand. Setari steps forward, tracing the carvings at the temple's threshold. The hieroglyphs depict a guardian and eternal protector bound to the tomb. As she reads, a deep growl rumbles from within the entrance. A figure steps out from the shadows. Clad in ancient armor, his eyes glow with an unnatural light. The guardian of Archimen is no man but a being trapped between life and death, bound to his duty by the Pharaoh's last command. "Who dares disturb this place?" His voice booms, echoing through the canyon walls. Setari straightens, her fear swallowed by urgency. "The prophecy is unfolding," she says. "The Forgotten One stirs. We need to know how to stop it." The guardian tilts his head, regarding her with something akin to pity. "You cannot stop what is already set in motion," he murmurs. Then, in an instant, he lunges. The battle is swift and brutal. The guardian moves with unnatural speed, his blade meeting the guard's weapons with deafening clashes. Setari dodges a strike, rolling across the stone floor. Her mind races she is too powerful. But then she sees the amulet Arzak carried, now clutched in the guardian's grip. It is the key to his binding. If she can take it, they might have a chance. With the guardian defeated, Setari grips the amulet, its energy thrumming beneath her fingertips. But victory is short-lived. The moment the guardian falls, the entire temple begins to shake. Dust and debris rain from above, the walls cracking as an unseen force awakens. The air grows thick with an oppressive presence. The prophecy's final warning flashes in Setari's mind. The Forgotten One does not rise alone. The skies above the desert darken unnaturally, swirling clouds blocking out the sun. A monstrous roar echoes across the land, shaking the very foundations of the tomb. Setari and her companions stumble back as the entrance collapses behind them, sealing the temple forever. Sandstorms rise on the horizon, twisting unnaturally, forming shadows of creatures long thought to be myths. Setari grips the amulet tighter, realizing the grim truth. The battle is no longer about uncovering the past, it is about surviving the future. The Forgotten One is waking, and the gods themselves may not be able to stop what comes next. The skies over Nejet turn black as a storm, unlike any before sweeps across the land. Howling winds rip through the streets, tearing banners from the palace walls. The crimson moon looms above, bathing the city in its sinister glow. From the temple steps, Queen Nephra watches in horror as the sands outside the gates begin to churn, rising like tidal waves. Then, a deafening crack splits the air. The ground trembles beneath her feet. From the ruined tomb of Pharaoh Archomen, a towering figure emerges. Wrapped in ancient linen and adorned in shattered golden armor, the Forgotten One has awakened. His hollow eyes burn with unearthly fire, and with a single step, the sands obey him. The city's walls groan as if alive, their stones crumbling to dust. A voice, deeper than the earth itself, fills the air. "You have forgotten me. Now you will remember." Screams erupt from the streets as people flee, but there is no escape. The sands twist and coil, forming monstrous shadows of warriors long dead. Setari grips the amulet, her mind racing. The battle has begun, and they are out of time. Chaos engulfs Nejet. The royal guards struggle against creatures made of living sand, their weapons passing through the formless beings. Setari and her remaining companions fight their way toward the palace, where Queen Nephra stands resolute, her royal staff clutched in white-knuckled hands. "Tell me there is a way to stop this," she demands. Setari's heart pounds. The inscriptions in the temple spoke of balance, of a power that could bind the Forgotten One once more. The amulet hums against her palm, its energy pulsing with every heartbeat. She remembers the Guardian's words, "You cannot stop what has already begun." But perhaps she can finish it. The Forgotten One strides toward the palace, each step turning the ground to dust. His outstretched hand commands the storm, the wind lashing like a whip. Setari lifts the amulet, its glow intensifying. If she is right, she must get close enough to use it. If she is wrong, she does not allow herself to think of failure. With a final glance at the queen, she steels herself and runs toward the storm. As Setari nears the Forgotten One, a vision strikes her like a lightning bolt. Time bends, and she is no longer in Nejet but in a city long lost to history. She sees him not as a monster, but as a man. Pharaoh Archomen was once a ruler beloved by his people, betrayed by those he trusted most. His own priests, fearing his growing power, sealed him away, casting his name into oblivion. The prophecy was never a warning of his return, it was a curse placed upon him, ensuring his suffering through eternity. The vision fades, and Setari gasps. The Forgotten One does not seek destruction, seeks vengeance. And unless she can end his torment, he will never stop. She tightens her grip on the amulet and calls out, her voice barely audible over the storm. Archimen, you were betrayed, but this is not your city. These are not your enemies. The Titan hesitates. The storm falters. For the first time, the fire in his eyes flickers with something other than rage. The hesitation does not last. The power bound within Archimen's undead form surges again, and the storm reignites. Setari has no choice. She looks to the amulet, feeling its weight, its energy. The only way to stop him is to use it to bind his soul once more. But it will require more than just the artifact. It will require a life. She turns to Queen Nephra, then to the crumbling city around her. The choice is clear. She steps forward, raising the amulet high. A soft smile touches her lips as she whispers a prayer to the gods. Let this end. A brilliant light erupts from the artifact, engulfing both her and the Forgotten One. Archimen roars, but this time it is not infuriate, is in sorrow. The storm collapses inward, drawing the sand, the creatures, the darkness itself, into the glowing vortex. The city trembles one last time before silence falls. When the light fades, the storm is gone. The sands settle, and Setari is nowhere to be seen. The people of Nejet emerge from their hiding places, eyes wide with disbelief. The sky is clear once more, the cursed moon no longer burning red. The Forgotten One is gone, sealed away for eternity. Queen Nephra stands at the edge of the palace steps, staring at the place where Setari once stood. In her hands, she holds the amulet, now cold and lifeless. The weight of what has been lost settles upon her shoulders. She lifts her gaze to the sky, whispering a quiet promise. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. The city will rebuild. Stories will be told of the healer who saved them all. But deep within the desert, where the ruins of Archimen's tomb now lie in eternal stillness, the winds whisper a different tale of a girl who walked into the storm and never returned. And though the gods remain silent, the sands remember. They always do. The city of Nejet is forever changed. The streets, once filled with fear, now echo with resilience as survivors rebuild their homes. The desert, once a battleground of gods and monsters, lies still beneath the golden sun. Queen Nephra stands before her people, her heart heavy with grief, yet lifted by hope. She speaks of Setari's sacrifice, of the storm that nearly consumed them, and of the strength they must now carry forward. Though the scars remain, Nejet endures. And in the silence of the temple halls, a single breeze stirs the dust as if whispering her name. Time moves forward, yet the memory of Setari does not fade. Songs are sung of the healer who faced the Forgotten One, and scribes etch her story into temple walls so that no soul may forget. The queen ensures that every household speaks her name, that her sacrifice is not buried beneath the sands of time. In the marketplace, children play beneath murals depicting the great battle, their laughter ringing through the streets. Yet, in the deepest chambers of the temple, a single flame flickers upon the altar. Some say it is the god's way of honoring the fallen. The amulet, once a beacon of power and destruction, now lies sealed within the royal crypt, far from those who would seek to use it. Queen Nephra herself places it within an iron chest, locking it with both key and prayer. May it never be disturbed again, she murmurs, pressing a trembling hand against the cold metal. Outside, The wind howls, rattling the temple doors, as if in protest. But she does not waver. The relic has caused enough suffering. Whatever mysteries still lie within its golden surface, they will remain secrets of the dead forever. That night, as Queen Nephra sleeps, a dream takes hold. She stands in the desert, the sky endless above her. A voice, neither human nor divine, whispers her name. She turns, and there, standing at the edge of the dunes, is Setari. But she is no longer mortal. Her form glows faintly, her expression serene. "The balance is restored," she says softly. "For now." Before Nephra can respond, the wind rises, carrying Setari away like grains of sand. The queen wakes with a gasp, her heart pounding. She does not know if it was real, but she knows this something lingers beyond the veil. The sands of the desert shift as they always have, covering the ruins of forgotten civilizations, burying the echoes of battles long past. Nejet prospers, but the world turns as it always does. The story of the Forgotten One and the healer who saved them becomes legend, then myth, and in time, a tale told to children before bed. Yet, in the vast emptiness of the dunes, where no human foot dares to tread, the wind still whispers. And somewhere, buried deep beneath the earth, a golden artifact waits. Because history does not end, it only sleeps.